He finally responded. Kendrick finally responded with his new track Euphoria. And at a certain level, it feels weird that it took him this long, but he responded regardless, so here we go. But before I get too into the whole track breakdown, in general, I think Euphoria is a solid response to what Drake's been saying for the past few weeks. But it really just feels like another warning shot. We don't get a whole lot of new information in this track, and instead it feels like a lot of button pushing. Like Kendrick talks about how Drake is a fake gangsta, there's ghost riders, he doesn't want to be black, he's a bad father, and just this general hatred towards Drake. But at the same time, he's talking about how he has love for Drake and J. Cole, and says that this doesn't need to get too personal and that it's just a friendly fade. All while saying that he also knows a lot and isn't afraid to bring it up. Like it really just feels like he's letting Drake control the moment and decide what to do next. And it's almost like if Drake does continue, it feels like next round is going to be where we're going to see some crazy stuff. But let's get into the track and go over some of the quotables. It's not something that we really need to get super in-depth in, but just some things to bring up. The track starts off with a clip saying everything they said about me is true in reverse, which is apparently pulled from Richard Pryor as the Wiz, who says that and goes on to say I'm a phony. And I don't really know why he would mention it here outside of maybe saying Drake is Richard Pryor. I mean, Michael Jackson was a scarecrow and that would have been kind of the way I would have taken it, but then he goes on to say, them superpowers getting neutralized, I can only watch in silence. The famous actor we once knew is looking paranoid and now spiraling, which I really can just take as Kendrick seeing all these walls that have built up Drake for the longest time just start to crumble, all while Drake is trying to basically scramble to pick up the pieces. He then goes on to say, fabricate stories on the family front, because you heard Mr. Morale, a pathetic master manipulator. I can smell the tails on you now. You're not a rap artist, you're a scam artist with the hopes of being accepted. I'm not too sure exactly what that Mr. Morale bit was about, because I don't really remember much about Drake saying that, but he did mention Whitney. But the rest is really just how Drake manipulates people into thinking he actually is the way that he portrays himself, like this fake gangster that he keeps putting on. Like that's not him. But it could also just be talking about him getting with a bunch of young girls. He also mentions Tommy Hilfiger stood out, but FUBU had never been your collection, kind of touching on how Drake doesn't want to be black, like that sort of angle that Rick Ross was taking. Tommy Hilfiger can often be seen as a more preppy, primarily white-facing brand, and there's been always these, I guess, allegations of them being racist, whereas FUBU is for us, by us, and is more a black-facing brand. Like, that's the name of the brand. And then he ends that first verse section with, don't tell no lie about me, and I won't tell truths about you. I think this line, which is pulled from The Heart Part 4, really sets the tone for the rest of the track. Like, while Kendrick goes in on the hate, nothing new is really added onto the song, which, again, could just be brought from this line. Like, Kendrick's like, I bet if you're going to lie on my name, I'll just tell the truth about the stuff that people don't know about you, so choose wisely. This then goes into the second verse part, whatever you want to consider it. There's two beats, or like another beat switch in there. I thought it was technically three verses, but whatever. Kendrick starts things off with a Hellcat reference, which actually a Dodge Challenger reference, really. Hellcat made boys sit and type, sell their souls, okay. Everybody want to be a demon till they get shipped by your throwaway. Challengers have variations. Hellcats and demons are two of them. He's basically trying to say that everyone thinks they're hot shit. Like that's people are going to try to get that Hellcat because they think it looks cool. They think it's like expensive. They think it is kind of expensive, but that's like their goal, right? But then, everyone wants to be a demon. Like that's another variation, right? Like everyone wants these high value cars to them. But then when somebody comes over and just says some random shit, you get upset, which also is chipped by your throwaway. You're throwing something out your window, the windshield getting chipped. He then continues to go on to discredit Drake again, which comes in the form of his how you ever bit by basically just implying that Drake has never done any of the things that he said he's done, which I don't think is too surprising because I don't think most people have the assumption that Drake has done what he done or has done or said. Jeez. The first time that he actually says Drake in the track is with the first time I shot me a Drake. The homie had told me to aim it this way. I didn't point it down enough. Today, I show you I learned from those mistakes. In this case, Drake is a gun. And when he first shot it, he learned that he was aiming too high. So because he's learned from his mistakes, he now knows to shoot a Drake, you have to aim lower, effectively putting himself above Drake, or he has the high ground. Like, you have to aim lower than what you would think. Like, Drake has this perception. Well, actually, I would consider he's pretty high up, but in this case, Kendrick's saying Drake has this perception of being number one. So Kendrick's like, I bet I got to aim high. But in reality, he actually just has to aim lower. Kendrick also addresses Drake's use of Tupac on the Tailor Made freestyle with, somebody had told me you got a ring, on God, I'm ready to double the wage. I'd rather do that than let a Canadian make Pac turn in his grave. Kendrick would rather pay somebody double than to let Drake disrespect Tupac in the way that he did. I mean, he could really just be upset by Drake's use of AI, or he just didn't want to hear that. Like, if you're going to say something, use your actual voice, which I guess could also go into the whole, there's no accents you could sell me later on in the verse. It also gets a little interesting with him mentioning there's 3 goats left, and I see 2 of them kissing and hugging on stage. I love them to death. And in 8 bars, I'll explain the phrase, which he then goes on to explain with, I pray they my real friends. If not, I'm YNW Melly. He's showing love to Drake and Cole and praying that they're his friends, but also feeling some sort of way about the relationship. Like, almost like he feels left out. Or he's just confused as to why the biggest artists are so friendly with each other when he sees rap more as a competition. And if it is that they're conspiring against him, he's going to go YNW Melly and kill him with words, presumably. But he also makes sure to say that we ain't got to get personal. This is a friendly fade. You should keep it that way, which is something that I kind of expected when everything was starting. Like, this was all meant to just be for sport, but somehow it's going to get more personal, I feel. As the verse goes on, he continues to mention how he hates damn near everything Drake does. I hate the way you walk. I hate the way you talk. I hate the way you dress. I hate the way you sneak this. We hate the bitches you fuck, which is hilarious to me because it just feels like he doesn't like anything about Drake. And he also mentions how we being the culture, don't like the women that he's with, presumably because they're white, I guess. As Kendrick continues to talk about the culture, he asks, how many more fairy tale stories are you going to tell? How many more black features do you need to feel black? And responds immediately with, I like Drake with melodies. I don't like when he act tough, which I feel like it's a sentiment that a lot of people feel. Like, people who are looking at Drake from the outside looking in, they're like, Drake doesn't seem like the type of person who actually does all these crazy things that he might be talking about. Like, I think he's more of like the singing Drake, not the rapping Drake. And while I personally do like the rapping Drake better, I understand where Kendrick's coming from. Like, it definitely feels kind of weird. Kendrick then mentions J. Cole a little bit when he said, yeah, my first one, like my last one, is a classic. You don't have one. While also giving Drake some body blows by saying, let your core audience stomach that. Didn't tell him where you got your abs from. So, he's addressing both of them because they both had different things to say. J. Cole obviously said that Mr. Morale was not that great, put people to sleep. And he's like, yeah, whatever. But they're both classics. And then he goes on to just make fun of Drake for getting surgery, if he did get surgery. As we get through the rest of the track, it doesn't really feel like there's much else to talk about because they're not really deep cuts. It's just kind of funny moments that he brings up. Like, he says when Drake's with Sexy Red, he sees 2 bad bitches, insinuating that Drake is a woman. He touches on the contract splits and how Drake was originally signed through like 4 different people. And then he also mentions how Drake's team allegedly tried to pay somebody to find stuff on Pusha T. He also mentions that Kendrick mentioned that he has a kid to raise, and which is why, he's taking his time responding. His life isn't hip hop, but that's not something that Drake would know about. Like, he wouldn't know anything about that. He also further touches on the ghostwriting bit with ain't 20 versus 1 is 1 versus 20 if I gotta smack them right with you. It's obviously a play on what Drake said with what the fuck is this, a 20v1 from Push-Ups, but also just a note on his ghostwriting bit. Like, Kendrick's saying, like, yo, just focus on me. Like, I will take you on. You don't need to focus on all the other people that are going after you, because even to go after one person, you need 20 people. Like, I will take you on and the rest of your Ghost Riders as well if I have to. Everyone's getting beat. He also pokes more fun at the way that Drake tries to portray himself with the whole Crody bit. Kendrick is from Compton and probably a little bit more familiar with Crips than Drake is, and related terminologies. Drake just knows Pressa, really. That's downplaying it a lot, I'm sure, but he also is putting on this Toronto slang and accent while he's doing this, so he's just poking more fun at him. And then before the track ends, Kendrick makes a stand against anyone who would stand with Drake. So basically saying, like, he's ready to go at anyone. Like, you stand with Drake, I'm gonna get you. Like, anyone who feels the type of way, I'm gonna get you. And then he also makes sure to remind Drake that if Drake chooses to make things more personal, he will take it even further, which is kind of a weird way to end things, I guess. Overall, though, I do feel like Euphoria is a solid track. I don't know how often I'm going to go back and listen to it, but it's on streaming now, so I think that's cool. Overall, I do think it is a necessary response from Kendrick, seeing as a lot of people were concerned as to if he's actually going to respond. He doesn't necessarily bring up anything new, like I've mentioned, but it's more of a, let's redirect the topic to strictly rap, unless you want to get personal, because then if you go in there, I'm going there. Like, it's up to you, boo-boo. Like, what are we doing? Like, I don't know what's going to happen at this point, because I don't think they're going to go strictly rap. Like, I think Drake is trying to make this more personal. He's trying to get more out of Kendrick, and it sounds like Kendrick knows a lot more. So, Kendrick's not backing down. I guess that's where we're at. But that's kind of all I got. After listening to it a few handful of times, it's cool. But let me know in the comments below what you thought of this track and where you think things are going to go next. Is it going to continue? Are things just going to stop here? Who else is going to step in? What's going to happen? But also, while you're down there, like and subscribe to see more rambling and content like this. Thank you for watching, and please stay safe out there.